Central School District Board of Education meeting. There are two recognition of guest periods, one for agenda-related items and one for other topics. Please refrain from personal-related comments and address those to the appropriate administrator. To speak, fill out a proper form and submit it to the district clerk. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, with each speaker allowed up to 3 minutes. This meeting is held in public rather than a public meeting. And while we won't engage in dialogue tonight, we are listening. This meeting is live streamed and the recording will be posted online.
Well, thank you, board, for having the middle school here again to speak with you. And I got some great students to share some information. You know, this time of the year, we often hear, "'Tis the season." Well, let me assure you that at the middle school, it's always the season. Our classrooms and the hallways are filled with festive cheer, and the concert music sends families home with a warm heart. But did you know that the greatest "'tis the season" of all is? Well, I have three young ladies here that'll share some information of some of the things that have been going on in our building, and two additional ones that will speak to you about some SEL project adventure activities that the grade levels have been doing. So, from our middle school home to yours, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. But before I turn it over to Kiva and Delilah, Mr. Schofield, 457 petitions from the middle school today for a snow day, and they don't want you to be the Scrooge. So I'm going to leave those right here for the appropriate time.
So
And I want you to be aware. No, just hold on.
To answer that,
Think about it.
If you see me on my phone during this meeting, it's all the other superintendents talking about snow days, so I'm not doing a grocery list, and actually I was just looking, oh my gosh, no. So I'm catching up, so please excuse me for checking my phone during the meeting.
Okay.
I find it very rude. But
All right. Well, we have the petitions submitted here. Okay, at this time, I'm going to have
put that on my chart that I just got 400 and how many?
57.
457 petitions.
Timmy was absent today. Okay. So, all right.
I want to just thank you, students, for coming up here and talking to us. I just want to take a moment to say that the students, we were all very familiar with the school day, and the classes and all the sports and activities, but, from these students here to the ones at the high school, there's a lot more that happens here. They're learning how to become parts of society and trust each other and give it back to our community. I just want to commend you for coming up here and sharing that with us. Thank you. Okay, next, item 6, we'll have high school assistant principal Alexis Langhire will present to us financial literacy class in the high school.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share with you really about what is happening at the high school and where we're continuing to move and go in the direction as far as financial literacy. Certainly, we believe this is of great value for our students. And as you look at, as anybody can attest to our mission statement, so much of this speaks to what we're trying to do. Equip our students not just for diplomas, but for what's after the diploma. We talk with students often about high school's a conduit. It's an experience. We want to pack as much in while you're in that, pathway and in that tunnel. But it's really what's next. And we recognize for every student that's going to be different. And yet one thing that is constant for all of our students is going to be being contributors to society, being able to be responsible for themselves and how they interact with one another, being able to be prepared for ever-changing careers, as well as just a lot of unanticipated fluctuations, right? The one constant of life is change, but it's what we can never really expect fully. So with that in mind, I think talking about financial literacy, so much of what we've prepared and focused on in our district is incredibly relevant with that. So the first thing I want to bring our attention to is the Business Academy pathway. This goes back to in the year 2020 to 2021, we had a committee of teachers, myself, a school counselor, that worked together throughout that year and developed this specific academy pathway. And what we did in that year was not only reflect on what was happening before, we also did a comparison of districts around us. We looked at what's available. We looked at what classes we already had, classes maybe we were dreaming up that we could grow into. And one of the things that we felt was very important is that, number one, it was going to be accessible to all students. So while this is framed as the Business Academy, it's actually any student can take any of these classes that are listed up here. There's also what we talk about is on and off ramps. See, when we're talking about academies, we believe it's incredibly important that because we recognize students are going to evolve, and their interests are going to change, their career goals are going to change, that we want them to have the flexibility throughout their entire high school career to say, yes, I'm interested. Or, I don't know if that's going to be relevant next year, but I want to keep the option open. Or maybe, yes, I'm working towards it, I've benefited from a few classes, but oh wait, I'm now interested more in this other content area, this other program. And being able to have that flexibility, really what it does is, most of all, it provides our students with abundant choice, something that we have prioritized and continue to prioritize, that student voice and choice. Very quickly, to highlight a few things here, there's 4 different levels as part of that on and off ramps. There is no, this is the absolute given sequence. I think there's 1 or 2 classes that are kind of the advanced versions, so that might come after the previous, but for the most part, Introduction to Business, Career and Financial Management 1 or 2, Entrepreneurship, Accounting, Advanced Accounting, Introduction to Marketing, Sports and Entertainment Marketing, Personal Law. Those are all classes within the business department. But one of the amazing things that came from this committee of work was really about collaborating across departments as well. So the business department at that time and the committee, we looked at, well, hold on, there's some really dynamic classes happening in the math department that seem especially relevant. Let's tap in. There's a public speaking course that we think, this is going to be so relevant to all of our students in any of these capacities. That's really important. Let's tap in. And then, of course, that capstone, kind of finale of an internship is still a priority there. So what you're looking at is a 4-level academy program that allows on and off choices. It allows access for all students while still saying, if this is an area that you especially want to delve into, this is something of great interest, perhaps relevant to your chosen career path and what's next after high school, you've got abundant opportunities. But even if not, you can still take advantage of as much or as little as fits your schedule along with your other interests. Talking about financial literacy, though, one of the great things is, in addition to that Business Academy, that overarching, we took a step back, and what we wanted to do is kind of look at, well, where is financial literacy happening across all of our curricula? Recognizing that certainly it's very pointedly happening in our business program, phenomenal. But also, there's other areas and opportunities for students as well. And we thought it was really helpful and important to recognize where these opportunities are for students and what are some of the different highlights. So what I've done here is try to just break down it simply, very clearly, in just quick bullet points. There's, as you can imagine, from a curriculum map perspective, there's a lot more depth to that. This is more just trying to give you some snippets from topics. But Career and Financial Management 2, that's a 20-week course that is entirely 20 weeks of personal finance that our students can take. Many students do. That goes through, it's actually half of the statewide CFM, or Career and Financial Management curriculum. So this half of that is all budgeting, money management, credit and loans, and the list goes on. We also have that class aligned with SUNY Erie for credit for students, which allows them to get those college credits if they choose. That's in the business department. If a student or their family wanted to say, I think this is of such tremendous value, this is a class we want to make sure you get before you graduate high school. At some point, grades 9 and 12, fit it in. That's available to all of our students. That's going to be your most in-depth 20 weeks personal finance. We also have, looking to the right, business math. Now, business math is a full year course, and just as the name sounds, it's a little bit more heavy on the mathematics side. It's used for some students as a third year math credit, although it's still in the business department. And just as some examples of how it's relevant to financial literacy, investing, housing and mortgages, home and living expenses, some of those fundamental skills related to financial literacy. Moving further to the right there, economics and even AP macroeconomics, both of which are offered. Either of those courses serve to fulfill the New York State requirement. So every single student who graduates from Iroquois High School will have taken one of those two courses per New York State graduation requirements as of now. So with that, whether it's economics, which is 20 weeks, or AP macroeconomics, which is actually a whole year course, they're going to get into a couple units that are relevant to specifically, and I pulled straight from the curriculum there, the individual and the economy, looking at individual financial goals, budgeting, income needs, debts, and more. In our classes and talking with the teachers before preparing this presentation, got to look at some of the hands-on and very relevant projects that they're working on. And then moving further to the right, Advanced Financial Algebra 101 and 102. Now these are in the math department. These courses were developed by a few of our math teachers, specifically after they went to a conference and were able to learn about, hey, here's some ways to blend in very project-based learning ways what's very relevant to students as they prepare for the world, talking about interest, stock investments, a lot of your long-term financial planning, but then staying very much focused, for example, statistical analysis, looking at, as I dug into the curriculum a little bit, looking at logarithms and some of that more advanced mathematics, but done in a way that's very problem-based and hands-on for students. Collaborative, looking at relevant businesses on a regular basis. So these are all the classes where financial literacy, specifically personal financial literacy, is going to be coming up either fully on the far left or in snippets, more in the middle there and towards the end. All students have access to all these courses. That third column, the economics, all students will have to take that class. I'd be remiss if I didn't also talk very briefly about career planning when talking about financial literacy, because what we're really talking about is preparing students for what's next, right? That after the diploma. We work towards a diploma, but again, it's always about what's next. Now, one of the things that we know is that students, actually not much different from adults, change careers on a regular basis or change their plans and their goals. So we come at how do we support students with their career and future planning using a career agnostic approach. What does that mean? It's really saying to all students, you choose, we're going to prepare you for everything. Now within that, they can start to specialize. They might say, oh, I really want to excel in the sciences. I'm thinking maybe something in the health area. Phenomenal. We've got incredible classes in that area. Or they might be thinking, I really want to focus on business. I'm not sure what yet, but I just feel like that's pulling me. Phenomenal. We've got tons of classes in that area. So they can still specialize, certainly, but we want to make sure that all students walk out of high school, whether they're planning for trades, where typically there's still additional education required of some form, licensures, certifications, certificates, different programs, whether they're planning for military, jumping into some part-time work while they're still figuring things out, or the college land, any of those options, we work really hard to make sure they've got access and the equipment for all of those. So from the far left, student support, one of the new things they actually started doing in the last school year and continuing this year is they're working with all of our 9th grade students, so starting earlier to be able to shape some of those conversations about interest inventories and starting to connect those with the Bureau of Labor Statistics and saying, okay, let's take note of this. So when we have our next conversation, we can revisit it. And it might change by then, that's okay, but how do we keep working towards this? We're heavily involved with Ormsby, Harkness, New Vision programs, which I believe we're going to be talking about at a future board meeting to share more about that information. Northland Workforce, we've had some great connections with them and continue to connect students there, especially if they're thinking trades. They don't know what or what is necessary. Military, we're constantly bringing them in every month. Beyond that, Career and Financial Management 1, also a 20-week course. This one focuses entirely on that career preparation. Looking at the individual, what is relevant to them, what are their interests, what are the career clusters that make most sense for them to continue to explore, and then every aspect of searching for a job, from looking for jobs, job applications, resumes, cover letters, interviews, the after thank you letter or thank you follow-up call, all of those pieces, and within that, a major emphasis on those business and professional skills, especially communication skills. That's open to all of our students. And then finally, again, that capstone internship program, we're continuing to encourage all students to look at, pursue, and consider different options. The last piece I really want to identify here as it relates especially to us here at Iroquois is that over the last several years in particular, as we've sought to grow our technology program and technology offerings for students, it's been in collaboration with the business department. So this is an example of a future program that's been in development, still in development, and it's looking at how can we blend, as you look on the far right side, how can we blend classes from the business department, such as marketing, entrepreneurship, where you're dreaming up products and issues to solve through the products, but then also on the technology side, actually creating them, actually figuring out what has to go into getting this into production and selling it fully. So that marriage between technology and business is something that we're continuing to press forward with and do some excellent work with. So from a future consideration perspective, we're going to continue to prioritize student voice and choice. We're going to empower them to have all of these opportunities to say these are so relevant and important for you, help them to consider all those options. It's going to impact their motivation in those courses. And then one area, if the board wanted to consider, currently we have a community service policy related to our graduates. It has come up in conversation really for years now, as long as I've been here. It's been kind of a, hey, this is maybe an idea, just maybe, of looking at, do we have options for students? So not take it away, but options. Community service is an option, but maybe internship is a different option. Or maybe CFM 1 and CFM 2, if we're saying those are such important courses, that's a third option. So that could be an area to consider. And then certainly as the technology department in particular continues to grow, that always comes with abundant costs because some of that equipment is incredibly expensive and just the rotation of it. They all have a lifespan to that equipment, but we trust that in your hands. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you about these programs.
Do you have a few minutes for some questions?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't asking a question, Jim. So how many of our high school students approximately are in the Business Academy?
So the academy itself is an ongoing, and I jotted down some numbers. I was kind of ready. So
Yeah.
the academy itself evolves, and I preface it with that because we talked about that on-off ramp. So for me to say this is the exact number right now, it wouldn't be an accurate representation of how many graduate with it. We just grandfathered the new program up until last school year. That was the first year we actually graduated out with this program. Because before that we said, okay, it's middle of your high school career, don't do that. We had one student with the platinum membership last school year. That meant that they took, so if you go back to, actually I can go back to maybe, no. Just kidding. In a moment I can.
What's the number?
If you go back to this, one more, Paul, number 3.
Slide 3.
Thank you so much. Yep. So you're looking at 6 credits plus the internship credits. We had one student achieve that platinum level membership last year, and I'd have to roughly say 15 or give or take a few. I don't want to overestimate, I
No,
don't want to
that's okay.
misrepresent, the primary level. So those are students who are saying, I want to take as much of this as possible. How many students are actually in, so let's say CFM 2? Over the last several years, currently 31 students, ranging to 32, somewhere within that. CFM 1 has higher numbers, closer to the 60 range, give or take.
I feel that we're not preparing our students as a district to be financially literate when they leave high school. In fact, during the roundtables, which we had last February, I believe, I asked students, the high school students specifically, a question on, do you feel that you're going to be financially literate when you graduate from high school? 2 people raised their hand. And I feel that CFM2 seems like it's something that we should ensure all of our graduates at the 20-week course have gone through that class in the course of their 4-year career. And I understand that we should allow the students to pick and choose what their interests, but I just don't think that we're preparing them for the world if they're not financially literate. And I know that other districts have required this course as part of a graduation requirement. I know the state is looking into making it a requirement as well, and I know neighboring districts have also done that. So is that something that Iroquois should consider doing?
No, because that was a good point. We had talked about this, and I think what we were waiting for, and I think some of the answers are going to come later from Mary Jo, is we were waiting to see what the new requirements are for graduation from the Blue Ribbon Committee and what we can and what we cannot require. So we had that conversation because that concern is largely shared. I mean, I'd have the one to share, do kids really understand when they're going to college and they're taking college loans, what they're getting into? But we kind of tabled that only till we got back from the Blue Ribbon Committee to see what could be required and what could not be required. And I believe that Mary Jo is going to answer some of those questions in a little bit. So.
But that aside, though, regardless of what the state suggests, I think that we just need to take a serious look at
Just
this.
as a reminder, what was said by state SED representatives is that if you put a requirement on graduation that's not a requirement in the Blue Ribbon Commission, you can't do that. In saying the Blue Ribbon Commission, there is a piece on financial literacy.
Okay.
I just saw some.
That will look like we don't do that.
Yeah, and, so how do you move forward with it? I think Alexis did a great job about voice and choice, because, and I've heard stories from other districts that do require it, where that puts children in a very difficult spot for some colleges they want to go to, because they're not able to take the courses required to get into the college, or their scholarships they can't take because they require one.
Over a 4-year period, though, for a 20-week class, I don't think it's,
Well, if I could,
I'm just saying that, you mentioned other districts that are required, and that's what I've heard. I think as a majority, they would be fine if you were to do something, or we were to make it a priority to support the voice and choice. I would think there'd have to be an off-ramp, so if someone needed this for this reason, they could be exempt from it, I guess, would be the way I would say it.
I mean, if we told them they had to take
I think it's
this whole, because anyone that's gone through this business academy, their primary or platinum is going to be very successful in life. It's just not enough of our students want to sign up for all this, but what could we put in place so that they leave and they know how to balance a checkbook? They can leave and know what a student loan, credit card rate, like API, I just don't feel like we're doing our students or our community any justice by not requiring something along these lines.
If you go one more slide, and look at, the economics and AP, macroeconomics, is any of what she's talking about covered in there? And maybe it's just working with the teachers to cover a little more in depth. Because that's already a New York State requirement.
Correct. So for a number of years, I taught that course, economics, and we made certain that we covered loans and your basics. And it is possible to just go back and make certain that those areas are focused on, in that class. And it's not taken till your senior year unless you take it in summer school your junior year.
Gotcha, okay.
I think one piece in there, and sorry if I apologize, have paid attention to the
That's okay.
snow days. One thing I've talked about off and on with different people is right now we have a requirement for community service. And I think part of this, what could help is if people have an option, instead of you have to do community service, it's an and/or with internships. Because again, that gets them out there in the workplace, seeing and experiencing it, as you see under business. And if I know I can get my hours done as an internship and they're doing it as part of the business academy, you can get more students signing up for it. So that could be a nice incentive. Again, I don't know how that worked with the Blue Ribbon Commission because they're actually saying you can't require community service hours. But I do know we have that policy already on the books, and that would be a modification we take as we wait for the Blue Ribbon Commission to come in.
And remind me, how many hours is that are?
32 by the time they graduate unless they enter our district later in high school.
Okay, so that's the course of 4 years, 32 hours, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to board discussion and news we're sharing. We're going to talk about the capital project spending limit discussion with the presentation.
Okay, so we do have Dave, Tim, and Mike here to help me. Thank you guys for coming again. And in it, we brought it back, and I don't know if you can, from the beginning, some of the numbers are hard to see, but you guys do have that all. And if you look at it, this says Proposition 1. We did label the other one Proposition 2. It's basically 1 and 2.
Hey, Doug, just a
Yes.
quick question. When you get to the second page, it says total high school, Prop 1 and 2. That's supposed to be Prop 2 for the total Prop 2s, right?
Is that correct?
So what we did there is we made it so that,
No, I got it right there, because if you go to the second page,
if you flip to the second page, we can
right
explain
above
that
what
out.
you're looking at in the green and the white would be the total, is that correct?
Yeah, so what we wanted to do is we wanted to show you, because the high school is in both Prop 1 and Prop 2, we wanted to show you what the total for the high school would be if both Prop 1 and Prop 2 were voted approved.
So does that mean that just so I understand, that Prop 1 total is 17,338,000? Is that this
Yes.
Prop 1?
Yes.
And the total for Prop 2 is
17,601,000 and change, or 601.
okay, so they're both about 17 million.
Both about
Yes.
7.
And then the line below that is just showing this high school by itself
Yeah.
with
Correct.
both propositions. Okay.
And there is a reason why we did that, and the reason why we did that is because we want you to be aware of what the MCAs are for that building. We have another slide, or I don't know if you've got this slide available or
No,
not.
we didn't do that, because really for the discussion
Okay.
today, we're just discussing, the funding, do we want to go out with no tax impact or no tax impact plus? We were talking about $10 million, could be any dollar amount of where the board is. You asked us to come back with what would we recommend having done. In looking at it, I think we're at roofs, some electrical in the high school, and then heating systems. So whether you pick no tax impact or no tax impact plus, there would be really no room for too much else than that. Might be a little asbestos we do in there, or what was the other thing, VA, what was the other thing you had, Dave?
Yeah, those are like, if we have some extra money that maybe take care of.
There's no extra money, it's just money to get to the top.
Yeah. Remaining funds.
There you go.
So just to
So when you look at this, if you were to look at it, we might tweak it a little bit, but really, if you were to look at no tax impact, it would really be that Proposition 1. if we went above that amount, and that could, you see a 17 million figure number there, and that could vary a little bit depending on the timeline and when we go out, which you do have a timeline, and what we would have in the reserves for no tax impact. But that's really what we'd be looking to accomplish. High school roofs, high school electrical, taking care of that big bus bar, and then Wales would be roof and heating system out there. And that's about all we could accomplish with no tax impact.
Okay, and so what we're going to ask us to do as a board right now is to let Doug and the administration know, do we want to do just the one proposition with no tax impact, or do we want to include some other stuff which would have a tax impact? And I think that just from my point of view is that we do say no tax impact, but remember that the operation budget is going to go up, and there will be a tax increase for that for our community. Just speaking for myself, I strongly feel that I would want to stay with Proposition 1. I don't think that passing more taxes on to the community right now is the right idea or the right move, especially with everything going on with inflation and where everyone has been. Plus the fact that, in recent memory, because we talked about this last time, the voters have never passed a improvement with a tax increase. So that's just my thoughts, and I think we can, get everyone else's thoughts and decide where we are fairly quickly.
Go ahead. For Proposition 2, what would be the impact if we kicked it down the road a year? Because I think all of these were critical, or more than a year, but they're critical, priority number one items are both in Proposition 1 and Proposition 2, right?
That's correct.
Dave, Tim, that would,
Well,
Dave,
we're
everyone
trying to
fix
take
it.
the more critical. In other words, we're thinking, you gotta maintain the envelope of the building. If you have a leaky roof, everything that's underneath it could be damaged.
So is Proposition 1 the critical ones, and Proposition 2 is the kind of critical, but maybe lower critical?
A lot of the roofs are past warranty. They're continually getting leaks that have to be addressed, especially this time of year, because everything gets even more critical. So that's why we're addressing these main items. I'd love to be able to put them into cabinets and making the building look pretty inside, but, like I said, if you can't maintain the heating systems in the roof, then you put all that other stuff in the peril.
The one thing that when we do the HVAC, well, actually with both of these items, because with the roofing system, we're putting additional insulation in the roof. So there's energy savings that you're going to get out of that. The new HVAC systems that we're going to be installing with these capital projects would also be a more energy efficient system. One of the things that comes along with these capital projects would be the way to control the heating. Right now, it's a pneumatic system. Pneumatic is 1950s technology and older. Pneumatic systems have been around for a long time, but it's probably how you control your system at home, where you go to your thermostat and digitally control the temperature up and down. It's a little bit more involved than that, but the idea is the same, is that you're able to control the temperature much more carefully and save energy by just the control point alone, not to mention the systems themselves will be much more energy efficient than what you currently have.
Right, another example of that is Maryland wells are still steam heat. So you have to generate at least 214 degrees to create steam. So if it's spring or fall and it's 50 degrees, still pushing out 214 degrees. And so you warm the building up, and you got all that heat in the building and all the steam lines, and then the sun comes up, and all of a sudden the building takes all of that heat, and now it's 85 degrees in the country, versus with the pneumatic digital control system, it's going to read the outside air temperature, and I only need to heat this until to 92 degrees. So I heat the water to 92 degrees instead of 214. You understand? So there's a lot of efficiencies in that.
And,
You can control when it comes on, you can tighten things up a lot better.
and in Prop 1, that's where Wales is getting, we're replacing the steam boilers, and they'd be replacing the pneumatic controls at Wales, okay.
And with the amount of money needed to do Marilla, it does not fit under the tax cap, or not, sorry, the wrong thing, under no tax impact. And so therefore, that's why it's not in there. To do Marilla would be about another $7 million, which is why you see that puts it up to a threshold. We don't think we would make it under no tax impact. If the board elects no tax impact and we can get to that number, then we would put those pieces in.
I would like to see us do Proposition 1 with the no impact, and then, so long as that passes, have Proposition 2 be it, where we leave it to the voters, and we have to have a really good package, communication package that explains to them exactly what is in both propositions, and that, because really the stuff that's in Proposition 2 is just as important as the stuff that's in Proposition 1. We have to communicate to our community that our buildings are old and they absolutely need updating, and that does take tax dollars. What does that impact look like? What is that going to look like for a household? If your house is, $100,000, $200,000, what is that going to look like in your next tax bill? But understand that these are roofs, these are the heating, these are the windows, we're not asking for, a dome on the stadium across the street. We're asking for not leaky roofs. I think that if we communicate this well, that people understand that it takes money to maintain a building. It takes money to maintain their homes. They see the rising costs. I think that people understand that, and I just have to have faith that they would say, well, yes, of course we need heat and we need windows and we need roofs. Because there's not really much else on this. And let the taxpayers say, yeah, we'll do this with no tax impact, and then the second proposition, we understand there's an impact, and the people that, really, it gives them a voice to be able to say, we agree that we need roofs and windows and what was the other thing? Heat. So, roofs and heat.
And reading Prop 1 has there's no roofs in Prop 2, right? I'm not seeing, we got heating and roofs.
There's no roofs in Prop 2.
Yeah, heating.
We got the double criticals in Prop 1, right?
Paul, can you go to the Prop 2, put it up there?
But I mean, the fact that we're calling them double criticals and criticals, like that's.
Because a Proposition 2 doesn't
Yeah.
pass.
I understand that things are hard. I know my tax bill will have to increase by this as well, but I just can't in good conscience think about the school not having these most basic needs, when kids are here for 8 to 10 hours a day. These are things that we're not asking for a new pool. We're not asking even to fix the pool. We're not asking for new classrooms in this. We're asking for heat, roofs, and windows. I think that if we communicate this well, we can, the community will share our concern.
And it'll be savings as well, installing some of these items?
Well,
Not
It'll
significant?
mitigate the increase in expense.
Yeah,
somewhat, yes.
okay.
I mean, now with new OSHA standards, you gotta push it, or not OSHA standards, but,
Asher?
actually, yeah, you gotta push in more ventilation. had to pull the air conditioning. So now, with that more volume, you gotta add more BTUs to be able to maintain that. So, yeah, if you were to keep that same system and try to push it through, it'd be huge savings. And one other point that might be of interest is, why did you pick Wales over Marilla? Because they're both essentially the same equipment. They're from 1954 and 1968. Because Wales has well water, it's a little rougher on the system. You know, it decays some of the condensate piping and water line and stuff. So that's why we're going at that as the first shot. Just so in case somebody from Marilla said, well, why aren't you taking care of us? That's why we kind of chose that.
So just to kind of circle back real quick, and I just don't want to put words in my mouth, but Heather and Jane, you would like to see Prop 1 and 2. I would like to see just Prop 1. And Bob, Heather?
1 and 2, I like Jane's idea, yeah. Let
There you go.
people decide on 2.
So I guess the next thing to talk about then is if you look at the timeline, estimated timeline, you could see we'd be talking about a vote in October of '25. That gives us this fiscal year to get more money into the reserve to mitigate any tax impact. If you keep it at 25, you have the 1 year. If you go to 26, you would have 2 years to put money into the reserve to mitigate the tax impact. Which would you like?
I would definitely rather go to 26, because I really have a big problem with any tax impact.
Now, remember, what is the inflationary impact? 8%? 6%. So it adds a 6% cost onto it. So if we put $1 million in there, you really don't get $1 million more worth of work. There's a 6% loss in there. To make the board aware of that as you make that decision.
And that fluctuates.
And it fluctuates depending on what the economy does.
Exactly.
Thank you. It's not a guaranteed 6.
Right. We all saw it spike, and it's come down, but it's volatile.
Okay, so that would be the next question that Doug
That's
just
the next
posed.
question.
Jane, what do you think?
I like John.
I don't think
But
kicking,
remember this, when we come to budget time now in January, we talked about the budget and what we're going to do and how much money the state gives. Will we be able to build in the budget funds that we're comfortable with that will generate more money for the reserve? And again, that depends on what happens throughout the year. If something breaks that's very expensive, we would not have that funding.
question, the Rockefeller Institute put out their study
Yes.
on foundation aid. None of what they say, if the state instituted any of that, that has no impact on capital projects. Is that correct?
Nothing in the report could I find had anything to do with capital projects. The only possible thing that if the state does something, they could reduce the amount of aid districts get for capital projects. So instead of getting our 70, they could lower us to 60, just because they feel like it.
And that could happen by 2026. That could actually happen,
That's
but
a good question.
that could actually happen even if we,
Yeah, I mean, it's been where it has
Voted
been
on
for
this
years,
tomorrow,
but
but-
so is State Farmers.
yeah, I'm,
John's smiling now, he likes your question.
I mean, I am, you taught me well. Okay, I'm nervous kicking the can down the road because who knows what the state's going to do. And what I'm saying is we're giving it to the voters. We're saying, here's this one and it's no tax impact. And it's in your hands, voters, if you feel the same way that Jane Sullivan, board member, feels about getting heat and windows in Marilla and a little bit more in the high school, and you're willing to pay that extra tax, you say yes to Proposition 2. But you can say yes to Proposition 1 and no to Proposition 2. It gives them their voice. It allows us to move forward either way with something, to help our buildings. And I don't see waiting an extra year how that
Tim,
changes
Do
anything.
you know when we
It saves money.
into the aid
It lowers
rate
taxes,
limiting.
if that's it.
Remember that rule?
Does it, though?
Is it when we do an LOI?
Oh.
Oh, you're talking about for the MCAs?
No, it's when your vote passes.
When your vote passes. Yeah, so if our vote passes, then we're locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't.
And the state can do all kinds of things if we wait.
They could do it for 25 too, though.
They can do it for 25 too in April, but we would
they
know that when
could.
we go out to vote.
For the vote.
So you just have to get through the, and there's been no conversation of it, for the 25 one, you know, and actually, I gotta take a break here. We're gonna have a snow day tomorrow, so Nora can step out and call it, 'cause you guys are upsetting me so much.
You
I'm
heard
just so
it here
depressed.
first, folks.
I
Snow day.
I need to have the day off, so, we'll have a snow day, so apologize, Nora, for stepping out. Okay, now I can relax and answer your questions.
Here's another question.
Yeah.
If we decide tonight that we want to go, well, we kind of
we
did, that we're
Yeah.
doing Proposition 1 and 2, but then something does change with state aid and state funding, by the time it's time to
You can
bring to the
change
vote,
it.
you could change the vote to
Yes.
just the one proposition with no
Yes.
tax impact.
And
See.
whichever October it is, we will know what the budget is before
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah, that's, I guess,
So we wouldn't know at that time.
I don't see the point in waiting until 2026.
Like,
So I see yeses and
Yep,
noes,
I
and,
like-
25.
you know,
I like Jane's idea.
so 25.
No, I totally
I
understand.
brought that up as a question because I just
You wanna say-
want to make sure you know all the options and how much stress we want to put on John.
No, and I know, it's, you don't say, sorry, I totally understand. I'm just always concerned about any tax we pass on to the taxpayers. That's all.
I think that our community has to recognize that we have done that for so long that it is now time that they have to face the fact that we are asking for some very basic things, and it is going to require a tax impact. And that we are doing it in such a way that allows them to break that down and say no.
Yep.
We're not taking that away from them. We're just asking them to think this through logically and realize that our buildings are old and they need this. And we're giving them the ability to be able to say yes to one and no to the other. And it is my greatest hope that they say yes to both.
The only other concern is you have to be really clear, because I'm also concerned that having both propositions threatens both propositions.
And this is where our communication, we've talked about this in the past, that we do have some issues with our communication about budgets and votes and all this kind of stuff out in the community. This is where we have to show that we have learned from mistakes, make sure that everybody gets their packet in the mail, and make sure that everybody is well educated and understands what they are, saying yes and no to, and what impact it is going to have on them personally in their finances, and what impact it's going to have on the school district if they do vote yes or no.
And that also
It's
comes
their-
into,
it's communication.
if you're making the decision now, not to go back to the year because you made a decision, but the longer lead time you have, the more information you're able to get out. Because right now, being December, going into, next month is January of '25, you basically have 10 months to try to get the information out and develop it and put it all together, so that, I'm not saying that's impossible for communication, but it does put a crunch on it. Okay, thank you.
I have every confidence in you.
The videos worked very well last time. The social media and the videos worked very well. We have our systems now where we can send out links. So.
Okay, we've got through that. Oh.
Just a point of clarification, so that as we move the message forward, there's one window being replaced within the department. And I wanted to clarify that. The reason why the window is being replaced is because it's a single pane window in the boiler room. And that boiler room, we would take the window out, pull the old boilers out, bring the new ones in, and then put a new window in place.
We like the single pane to make sure it's cooler while you're working on the boiler.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
No, that's exactly what I mean by communication, though. We have to be transparent.
System at Wales, roofs at the high school, roofs at Wales, the the backbone of electrical system at the high school. Did I get everything in there, Tim? And then if we see any other little pieces in there, just to round numbers off, we might do those. Because I know Dave and I talked about some things, so we'll start planning for it. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Not on the snow day, you don't.
Now I would,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, guys. I'd like to welcome Mary Jo to do our Blue Ribbon Commission.
Let's stand for this. Okay.
So the Blue Ribbon Commission has actually started in 2018, prior to COVID. And, well, school's closed.
What did I say earlier about being on your phone at a meeting?
It was on silent. Anyway, the Blue Ribbon Commission was brought together by a group of administrators, teachers, parents, organizations, and the purpose is to plan and to guarantee every school student has equal opportunity and support to be successful in school and beyond. I forgot I have the clicker. Over the years, we had a break due to COVID, and in 2021, we started getting, people started getting back together. The commission reaffirmed, and we had some virtual meetings, and it was settled that there were 4 transformations by the Blue Ribbon Committee that they were looking at. So the first was to adopt a portrait of a graduate. So what would your typical graduate look like? And so they were looking to increase student choice and flexibility, provide multiple pathways to graduation, and provide equitable and inclusive capabilities and opportunities for the students, and real world, and the graduate would be career ready, whatever that they choose. They also wanted to redefine credits and learning experiences. They want, as they said, more choice, so personalized learning experiences, the ability to get credit in varying ways for their classes, and the optimum would be to increase student engagement. Then they said they wanted to sunset diploma assessment requirements. And it's not that that assessments will be going away, because Regents won't be going away. It's just how they're going to be used. Some students may choose to take the Regents exams, while others may, other classes may have project-based learning experiences or internships or capstone projects that allow for the student to prove that they are proficient in the areas. And then finally, they're going to move to one high school diploma. So advanced Regents and those designations will be gone. Instead, everyone will graduate with a high school diploma, but they'll have certain endorsements, say for the Seal of Biliteracy or Seal of Civic Readiness, and other areas once they are created.
I saw I'm sorry, Mary Jo, I saw your presentation and I saw the endorsement part on it. With the, like Seal by Literacy, is there a way to recognize the students that take more rigorous coursework there, like honors?
It would be through those.
So there's a seal like that?
Yeah, they would be, and what it is these are still being formulated. And I have the timeline in here to show you where it's beginning and how long it'll take. So the information that I have, that I'm reporting on, is the most recent information, but each month the Board of Regents gets updated, and so essentially we'll keep getting updated. They're supposed to be sending out some potential plans and outlines for us. Hopefully by the end of the year we'll have something.
So just a short circuit question, because I, share Heather's concern. Right now, we don't know if we'd be able to require a student to take anything, right?
Correct.
As of right now, we don't know that.
Correct. So here are some potential challenges that come with the changes that the state is talking about. First and foremost, the consistency and equity across the districts is what everyone is looking at. Measuring competencies, the standards that one school has over another, that will need some direction. The financial and resource constraints, because we're talking some major changes over the next 6 years, that it's going to require professional learning, especially with guidance counselors in the high school, with the changes that are going to be made. There's also communication challenges, because we need clear-cut parameters to work from if this is going to work, because otherwise it's open to interpretation, and then that could cause us problems down the road. So here's the timeline that we're talking about. Right now we're in the planning year, and what the planning year talks about is basically our current 9th through 12th graders, nothing will change for them. Their requirements will stay the same as far as credits and Regents exams and diplomas. The one thing that might impact our students taking Regents exams is the state has brought in that if a major life event happens to that student, they can seek out an exemption. So God forbid there's a death in the family, a serious illness, something along that line, we have the ability to give students exemptions. This year, they intend to release the portrait of the graduate and give us a better, clearer definition of that. They are also going to establish work groups and advisory committees and begin to disseminate information. In phase 1, which is the fall of 2025 through 27, they're actually going to release rubrics to go along with the portrait of the graduate, and they're going to require the instruction in the financial literacy. That's actually going to be effective 2026 to 27. However, they have not released what it's supposed to look like yet. And so that will be coming from the state. Then they're going to also release details on the new credit requirements and continue their communication. In phase 2, that begins the fall of 2027, they're going to move to one diploma, and they're going to sunset all of the diploma assessment requirements for all students. They're going to redefine the seals and endorsements, and this will allow districts to develop their own assessments. They're going to redefine credit and ways to expand students' ability to earn credit. And they're going to bring in professional learning opportunities and learning networks. In phase 3, they're actually going to be releasing new transcripts. So student transcripts will have a total different look. That is believed to begin in 2030. So let's take a look at how it's going to change our diploma requirements. As I said before, our current 9th through 12th graders are not affected by this at all. Now, a cohort is defined by the year that the student starts 9th grade. So our 9th graders are in cohort 2023 because they started the school year in September of 2023. Okay? So our cohorts 2024 through 2026 are our current 6th through 8th graders. They will be the ones that earn the one diploma with the advanced designation. They will have the current credit requirements, but if you notice in the third dot, the diploma assessment requirements will cease to be mandatory in 2027. That's what we mean by the professional learning that's going to need to take place, because without the proper parameters, it's going to be easily misconstrued. Cohorts 2027 through 28, so that's your 5th and 4th graders right now. That's where the diploma assessment requirements are completely sunset. And again, they're under the one diploma, but there's going to be a new credit requirement. What that is, we're not certain yet. And from our current 3rd graders moving forward, this is where we're going to have the proficiency in learning standards and the portrait of a graduate required. So 2 different things the kids are going to have to prove. So it could be soft skills, soft work habits, but also what they're going to be doing is fine-tuning our learning standards. So again, that's a professional development impact that we're going to have, because oftentimes when we have new learning standards, it changes our curriculum, it changes our scope and sequence, it changes our report cards, it changes an awful lot. And the state really wants to expand learning experiences for our students, so we need to, even though we've done a lot of work in project-based learning in our district, we're going to need to do a lot more. Questions?
So bring some of this back to financial literacy. I think you said
2026, 27.
It's going to be mandatory, so we'd be implementing or doing something for 1 year, 25, 26. I personally recommend going to that one economics course that's already required, reviewing what they're doing, get them to shore things up, look what's required, and build from there.
So, and basically, right now, it's the little difficulties, we have a rough skeleton from the state, and there's nothing attached to it to make a lot of decisions on at this time.
No, but every month we get updated, and so if there's anything relevant, I would definitely bring it back to you guys. If it's, wow, this is a great parameter, now we can work on this.
Is there anything in what the state is doing with this Blue Ribbon Commission project? Is any of this in any way long-term down the road going to actually cost the district less money?
No.
Didn't think so. That's my only question. I just want to point out the state is doing things again that make us spend money that they're not giving us.
Heather, did you have something? It's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Oh, Heather?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Jo. We'll move on to the superintendent report from Mr. Douglas Schofield.
Okay, the first thing I have on that is open community communication. So I'll say as of end of day Tuesday, because I am behind on emails today with the different things that functioned. I did not have anything at that time. So I'll move along to regionalization update. And then those in the public that are watching, I apologize if you sent me an email today, but I'll have time tomorrow to get to them. The regionalization, and we talked about that before, and we talked about it last time. It was about working together with other districts that developed regionalization. We had some concerns about being forced into it. The state has come out with a document stating clarification that ensures districts maintain full control over the plans they develop. They are weekend voluntary to not participate in it by written submission by January 15th. The board would have to move into that direction. So do I recommend moving that direction or not? Tough question. Mary Jo and I did listen to the regions yesterday because they had their meeting. And repeatedly, they said, this is an intent for people to be able to work together, to get people to work together, that they do not intend to force people to do it. Sometimes they use their words very carefully when they're speaking, so we try to listen into them. They did say one of the things they want to do with regionalization is go back to legislators and say, here are mandates you have to lift because look at the great plans they have, and here's where funding will help them implement these. So what I hear in that is trying to remove mandates and give us more freedom, which is a good thing. Where I hear in that too is future funding will be driven towards this. If we're not in it, and we also listened and said, if you're not in it, what we heard, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, so I keep looking at her, is that if you don't get into it in the beginning, you won't have an avenue to get on.
But Doug,
Yes.
because I have grave concerns with this, do you have an avenue to get off?
Well, and that's a great thing. So in reading through the proposed amendment to Part 124, Subpart 124.2, blah, 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 chapter, it says with this rule, cause it an emergency rule, and personally, I don't see why it has to be an emergency. I think they could have done due diligence in it. They said they had 9,500 comments in a state that has millions of people. I don't think that's very many. The regionalization is a collaborative model that can help solve challenges by voluntary conversations among school districts. Bring together leaders to work together in solving issues. Regionalization conversations facilitate partnerships. The proposals are designed to coordinate efforts, and somewhere in here, these proposed regulations facilitate voluntary, so I hear voluntary in it, but the ideas and needs come only from participating school districts. So therefore, I'm kind of interpreting this and what they're saying as if we have to develop the ideas, give them to the district superintendent, and then they get stamped to move forward with it. But if we don't put forth the ideas and keep talking about them there, then that wouldn't happen. I hope I'm not naive in saying that. Component and supervising district would begin implementing, that's not it. District superintendents, that'd be the BOCEs, shall monitor the implementation. So it's saying they only should be monitoring it, not forcing it, not making the decisions. So I think in that, I would have a decision that if a group of school districts wanted to work on developing people that trim trees, and I would rather have someone work on shrubbery, that I could put that as a collaborative over here and not be part of the tree trimming service. I picked something innocuous because I don't want to persuade people to go in a certain direction. I think they use snow plowing in their example, which I thought was foolish too. So I would recommend moving into it. I have a meeting with the DS and other superintendents next week, Friday, where I can ask additional questions, but I know his stance on it from other meetings. So the board could wait till their January meeting to make the decision. I can keep updating you in Friday messages, or you can make your decision tonight. I think because of the funding is going to be attached to it, I think that's an avenue we want to get into, and I think we will have some say in that for everything I see what they're doing now.
My biggest thing is, and I don't trust the state at all, not even a little bit, and they've come up with some horrible rules, is that before we agree to move forward, I would want to know if things start going in ways we don't like, can we get out? Because the state's the same one who, we talked earlier about, having, the boys playing girls' sports. They've done a lot of things that is at least, questionary, and I would not want to say let's get in until we know that. I think we just know. If we say yes, are we locked in? I would just think we should know that before we make a decision.
I will ask that next Friday and get that out.
I think, because if there's no off-ramp, that would have factored.
Even if it's a special one after the regular one, because I try to get those out at 1:30, I might not have my answer until after that.
And
I'll get that out, and Dr. O'Rourke is the representative from the state. They should know this. He would be the one leading it.
And just to be really simple, I just, when our discussion on the spending limit for the capital projects, I may have had a different thought or opinion, but the decision was still made here, and I don't want to lose that at all, or at least if it's possible that we're going to lose that, I'd like to know before we say, hey, we're in. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion.
I don't have a problem waiting till our January board meeting and getting an answer to that question. I do want to say that ECASB had the legislative breakfast on November 16th, and the question was posed about regionalization, and Dr. Capuana, the district superintendent for Erie 1 BOCES, was present, and he got up and talked a little bit about it. And I also had a side conversation with him beforehand, because I wanted to give him a heads up that I was going to call on him. But in talking with him, I felt a lot more comfortable with this. The way he explained it is really that the other end of the state doesn't really utilize their BOCES the way we do here in Western New York. And what the state is trying to do is to encourage more interaction with BOCES across the state. And it really isn't a gigantic leap from where we are now to where the state is hoping that people will go, districts will go, and utilize their BOCES services more. There are other districts that have way bigger budgets than us that use less money than we do for their BOCES services. And that's where it sounds like a lot of this is coming from. So after talking to him, I do feel a lot more comfortable with it, and I would be on board with jumping in and being part of it and getting the funding that we can get. But I am also comfortable waiting for the answers that you guys are asking for, because those are really good questions.
No.
Because there is that question always, like, do we trust the state? And that's a tricky one. So I can wait for the answer.
And the people of the state do change, so there could be different interpretations years down the road. So that's where I agree with Jim, as sometimes you don't know, but I also know that I will get this answer from Dr. O'Rourke, and I will have it next Friday, and I'll get that out to you. I think he's going to say the same thing you said, of having him here and speak about it already, but I will do my double check, and it's not a race to get it done tonight. We can do it in January. Mary Jo, keep working on the report. The next one, sorry. Rockefeller Center Institute of Foundation Aid. I believe that's the next one. And I did. It took me 4 or 5 nights, and I woke up each morning. I'll try to summarize them all really quickly. If everything that was recommended in there, the state would spend considerably more to support schools than the current policies would deliver. In other words, they're saying if it was done right by the state better pony up a lot more money. They said if any one or piece is done without the other piece, some schools would gain, some schools would lose. They said good luck with it, basically, and now it's up to the legislators to see what they would do. And, so where's it going to go? They agree with everything the superintendents have been saying in the report, that it's outdated, not funded properly, and there needs to be a different formula, and the time when it was made might have been great, but nothing's been updated, and all that has to be done. So now it's up to the legislators. And that's it in a nutshell.
Which means we need to get into those legislators' offices. I have a meeting with Senator Gallivan coming up. Okay, I think we should all be at that one if we can be. If we can be there, it's next week, and I'm happy it went. Yes, I'll make one with David DiPietro if you want to, as well. If you guys will promise me you'll be there, because I don't want to go by myself. And the more people we have at the Capitol Conference, the NYSBA Capitol Conference, that in February, that helps. We are going to need to campaign with our legislators for this. They do have the, how do you say this? They do have the teeth for this right now. There is a movement, I'm hearing, that our legislators are willing to attack this. how they do that and if it benefits us or not is going to be totally up to our advocacy. So we really need to have a voice on this.
And the governor recently has been talking about school aid and backing off, it seems, some of her positions from before. Now, the fact she's backing off of this one, does she have another idea for something else over here? I don't know. We'll know in January.
And I was going to comment on that, but please keep in mind that all those reporting with the governor backing off is not because she wants to back off, that the politics is telling her that she's in trouble politically. And, you know, one of the larger, more powerful groups in our state is the teachers union, and they've often been pretty clear, if you hurt the finances of schools, you won't have our support. So she's backing off for political reasons, not because she's seen the light or anything.
I had a conversation with the executive director of ECASB. He went to the rural schools meeting last week, and he spoke with Dr. Bruce Frazier. He was a former executive ECASB director, and he actually was our interim superintendent here at Iroquois. He's been doing a little digging, and I'm going to mess this up, I'm sure, but I won't be eloquent at all. He's looking at it and saying, you know, a lot of people are saying, you know, New York State spends more money per student than any other state. Like, we are at the top of the list, and yet we're somewhere towards the bottom of the middle list of you know, student outcome, right? And so a lot of people are complaining because we spend so much money on education. But if you look at the state budget as a whole, we spend more money than any other state in lots of different areas. And if you look at the increases in other areas compared to education, the amount of money percentage-wise that we're going up in education is not nearly as much as we are going up in other areas in our state budget. So this attack on education, saying that we're spending too much money on education, might not be, you know, the big picture so accurate, that where we might have gone up 8% or 13%. I think he said it was 13% in education over the last 10 years. If you look at healthcare, if you look at roads and transportation, that kind of stuff, they've all gone up 26 or 32, or, you know, like, they're all going up. Everything's going up, and education is actually the area that's going up at the slowest rate. So even though it's increasing and it looks bad, it's easy to take targeted education. But really, you know, there's a lot of areas in the state budget that could be looked at. It's not just education.
And people have to remember, as one past board member pointed out, that one of the things that the state constitution says is that the state is supposed to fully fund education, and we also concede to this little thing called the lotto to fund education. So, I mean, that's where my point with the state is. They're not very transparent.
Where's our lottery money? Yeah. And a former board member also always would say, you know, we're here to give a sound basic education, and that, you know, that does not mean necessarily all these charter schools, and you know, we don't have that here in our district. We're not, you know, we don't have a charter school that's servicing our students, but that is, you know, another place where looking at the education budget, you know, is that the best use of our education tax money?
Moving on to recognitions, the first one, insurance reserve. The heck with that. I'm sorry. And so insurance reserve, which is the one in front of me. I do want to recognize people, ironically. John, thank you for putting this together. I think you started 4 years ago, working on this. And finally it came to fruition. The governor did sign it. Our teachers union did support it. We got a letter from New York State School Boards Association, so thank you to this group for being part of that. NYSET wrote a letter too, and Senator Gallivan, he has a gentleman, Nico, in his office, has spent a lot of time working with John to get this through. The partner bill in the Assembly was David DiPietro, Assemblyman DiPietro, and so thank you to all of them for getting this through both of their areas. getting it in front of the governor. The governor did sign it, and, we do go and ask, what have, what our legislators done for us, and this is something directly that Senator Galvin and Assemblyman DiPietro did for us. What did they get out of it? Is supporting Iroquois and helping us take care of our taxpayers, our teachers, our students, and so thank you very much for this insurance reserve. Is there anything I missed, John?
At the January meeting, we will probably introduce a resolution to adopt that formally. And we are thinking we might want to have a policy to go along with that we can adopt, maybe not January, but maybe soon after, that we can, we'll do a couple readings of the policy and that kind of thing. But establish a clear policy of how we establish that reserve, how we use it, all those kind of things to make sure we have it all covered in black and white.
And take it out, so. On the recognitions then, the Marilla Primary Pavilion. This is currently raising funds at a pavilion, a 4-square pad to the playground. The Kiwanis Club of Marilla is leading these efforts, and plans have been submitted to New York State for approval. They are within $10,000 of their goal. So if you live out in Marilla, and I think that'd be something great to donate to. The Kiwanis is a great organization, and they're hoping to contribute fundraise at their pancake breakfast in March. So go to their pancake breakfast, eat a lot, buy a lot, and help that pavilion be built, because that's something anyone would be able to use in Marilla. Just please don't use it during school hours, but all summer when you want to be in the shade and at a playground, that would be a great place. Also here at the II, the Red Hawks Nest Project, the Butterfly Foundation, and honoring the life and spirit of Katie Durkin, has agreed to match donations dollar for dollar until the end of the 2024 year. So there's a few days left. The Red Hawks Nest Project aims to build a new pavilion to enhance the intermediate school recess area. Excuse me. They've raised about $14,000 so far. With matching funds, they're at $28,000. They're trying to get to a total of $140,000. They have a ways to go, but this is a good time of year to show caring and love. So thank you to Emma Squana and Laura Cashmore and the Butterfly Foundation, Jeff Durkin, for your hard work and generosity towards the kids. The High School Drama Club Cabaret Night was a resounding success, showcasing incredible talents for our students under the leadership of the new director, Miss Kasiri. The performers' dedication and hard work shown through in every act, and unfortunately, don't miss the next production, Freaky Friday the Musical. That will be in April. So get that on your calendars, April 10th and 11th. That's the next production. We have very talented students here. Polar Plunge. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to? Congratulations to our students and staff who participated. Also, Heather. For braving and going into it. There were some text messages across the board of trying to get us to do it all next year, and I got to admit, I am a complete coward. Chris Hershey was there too. Jane's shaking her head no. But the students, I don't know how, do you know how much they raised? I don't have that in here. I know it's a significant amount.
I'm not sure the exact amount for Iroquois, but 2 days, it was $560,000 between the schools and the corporation. Schools and the corporations, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an amazing amount to a great group.
That's awesome.
Special Olympics.
Yeah, it really is.
Sean Lauber, thank you for leading that with our group here. And I know he would modestly say, really, it's not him, it's everyone that he's working with. And then to Mr. Scott Beeler, President and CEO of Western Automotive Group, who spoke at the high school students a few weeks ago. Thank you for coming in and kind of giving perspective of how to look at life, finances, and next steps as they move forward with their lives.
And then just highlighting about the high school, is it the orchestra or the music department is performing at the Basilica on Friday, of course, Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning.
And the concerts that were scheduled tonight will be rescheduled for the intermediate, I believe it was.
But they were for tomorrow.
Oh, for tomorrow.
For tomorrow.
For tomorrow night.
Yep.
We're closing tomorrow, not today.
Okay, we move on to recognition of guests for agenda items. We do not have any for agenda items. We're going to move on to discussion of agenda items 12.01 through 24.07. I would like to thank Life Touch for the donations. And what other discussion do we have on the agenda?
So I always hope to find like a little surprise or something in the financial report. So I have a couple questions about, to John. One, you have to throw something in there sometime to just make sure we're all paying attention, right? But I did notice that we paid Doug Schofield $1,705, and I was wondering what that was for. Do we recall? Conference or something?
That was
Yeah.
one of my conferences.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's, usually I put everything on my own credit card.
Okay.
So I don't take the school credit card in case I lose it or whatever, I kind of get paranoid. And so that would be just a reimbursement.
Okay, and
Sorry,
then,
I'll let John answer.
and then for the class of 2025, they had some pretty big deposits and withdrawals for October. I was just wondering what kind of mischief that class is getting up to. Do you-
Here have the details of that, but I can give you,
Oh, okay.
And I will,
Class of 2025,
25.
my guess would be, since that's the seniors, the senior trip is coming up in January.
Ah,
So
okay.
my guess
That's
is
probably
payments
about
and
that.
deposits for
Okay.
that to take care of senior trip.
I was just going to say, I've been through this a couple times, and this time of year, that happens
That happens.
to the
Okay.
graduating class.
Okay, and then the last question was, we paid Erie County Restorative Justice Coalition $10,000, and I was just wondering, are we still practicing restorative practices here at Iroquois?
That was for summer training.
Oh, okay, so it was posted in October, but it was for summer training?
Correct.
Okay, all right, cool.
So since we're training, yes, we would still be practicing.
Yeah, it was grant funded.
Just on a side note, ECASB had a speedboarding event, and another local school district, Cheektowaga, did a presentation. Was it Cheektowaga Sloan? It's Cheektowaga Sloan. Their superintendent and I think it was their business official, maybe it might have been one of their principals, did a presentation on their restorative justice practice. It was really, really interesting to hear about, and they do team up with, what did you just say? The Erie County Coalition, and when you look at how much work went into all of what they did before they even launched it with their students, it was just absolutely amazing. They're having some really good success. So if you're interested in learning more about what restorative justice could look like here, that I would encourage you to look at their program.
Well, we started that. I just don't know if we're continuing it.
Their program is so
We've
amazing.
had the Erie County Association in from before COVID, working with us. So each summer we've had 2 trainings, and the first year that we had them in, it was a short presentation, about an hour and a half, to all of the faculty before the day began. I know that it's much more defined in Cheektowaga Sloan, but we have been working with them, and we have a good relationship with them.
That's good.
I believe that was paid for using the Recov's mental health grant that you got.
Correct. That was part of the mental health money that we received in the grant.
And then on 2401 for the donations, have we ever reminded our community that if they go into the your TOPS bonus card and specify Iroquois as your school for the TOPS in Education program, that 5% of the TOPS products they give us money for? Because I know I just recently actually just specified Iroquois, and I didn't know if we've ever communicated to our public.
I honestly don't know. I'd have to ask the principals the last time they communicated that out.
I was going to say, I remember talking about that, but it was like 8 years ago, so it's
Yeah,
been a
I
while.
just don't remember how often or when they do it.
Because I see the donations coming in, but I think that they could be more if people just specified it, so maybe something for a Monday message, possibly, because I know
Well, I
for
will get
me,
it out to the individual principals for them to put in their messages, because it goes to their buildings.
okay, but this
So-
would be district-wide regardless if you have kids or not, right? Like my parents should do it, like it should be,
It would be great, but
across
my
the board.
message goes to the same people they
Okay.
go to in the buildings.
okay,
And I would hope that parents would pay more attention to the principals.
Yeah,
on the
okay,
program
just as
they're
long as
doing.
it's communicated
Well,
somewhere.
yeah, but
Great.
what about the people that don't have kids in the school that aren't getting the messages from our principals? How do we send that out to them? There's a lot of people in our district that don't have kids in the school.
We could put something, I have to think about, and that's our biggest thing, is Facebook could be something.
Okay.
So we can
Yeah,
take
maybe
their
just
message
promote
and
it.
put it
Yeah,
out there. And you said the TOPS bonus program, 5%.
Yeah, it's called Tops in Education. They have like something on their website instructions on how to do it, so. And then we'll have to see, they pay us what, quarterly or monthly? I don't know, but any which way, maybe a little bit more money come into the district. And then for 2405, for the facility use for the basketball tournament, are there SROs at those events?
They're not our events, so it's whatever that organization puts in place.
Okay,
They're renting the building from us.
they're renting, okay, so we
if they want
don't,
an SRO, they could, more
and
than
they'll
happy-
cover the cover
They would
the
have
cost
to
of
take
it?
care of the payment, yeah.
Okay, but we don't require,
No.
okay, for
whatever they
outside
would like.
events, okay.
Okay, moving on to the,
Oops, sorry, I just want to jump in. I want to thank, you can see on our agenda tonight, we have Jackie Ginter on there. She's been one of our school nurses here for a number of years, and I just want to thank her for her dedication to the students and her care and compassion and attention that she had for all our students as she heads out into retirement. We also have a few people you can see joining us on the list. Jenny Weaver is going to be joining us at 0.5 for TI and the II. And then I've got Olivia Colkett, Tracy Dobies, Amanda Worrell Doyle, who'll be teacher aides in Wales, and then Amy Magwell, who'll be joining us as our new folk nurse. So welcoming them, but also saying goodbye to Miss Jackie.
okay, moving on to the consensus agenda. The basic purpose of the consent agenda is to act upon routine matters in an expeditious manner. Items placed on the consent agenda are determined by the board president and vice president in cooperation with the superintendent and are those which are considered common to the operation of the district and normally require no special discussion or debate by the board. Board members have the ability and responsibility of reviewing the consent agenda ahead of time. A board member may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed and inserted in an appropriate place on the regular agenda. The president will present the initial motion followed by a request for a second. So for 1102, request to withdraw, I am requesting to withdraw one. Item 20.01, Thomas Bykowitz, there is an error with the resolution, so I would like to withdraw that when I made the motion.
So, second.
All in favor? Okay, that's, what is it, 5 of us tonight? Yeah, 5 in favor, and it passes. Is there any request to add anything to the consent agenda? Okay. Okay, I am making the motion to approve the consensus agenda, 12.01 through 24.07, with 20.01 being removed. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. All in favor? And now it's the time for our second recognition of guests, and we do have Stacy Thomas who would like to address the board regarding the girls' wrestling team. I just want to say thank you for addressing us. I just want quick reminders. It's 3 minutes, and you can't, just don't mention anyone by name.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Stacey Thomas. I am a mom of 6. I have 3 boys, 3 girls, and my children are ages 12 to 22. All 6 have been educated in the Iroquois School District and continue to be so. Approximately 10 months ago, my daughter, Michaela Thomas, who is a junior at the high school, was here in this room in front of the board receiving recognition for her role at the New York State Wrestling Championship, where she was a state finalist, and she was very pleased to receive board recognition that night. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the current state of the Iroquois girls wrestling program and some inequalities that I believe exist and would like to see corrected. Currently, I believe that the Iroquois Central School District sadly is not in compliance with Title IX requirements for a subset of our female athletes. Title IX protects equal treatment for girls in high school by prohibiting sex discrimination in any educational program. And this means that schools must provide equal opportunity for our girls to participate in sports, access the same quality of equipment that the boys have, and receive similar treatment to our boys in all respects. But we are now 3 weeks into New York State's inaugural first girls freestyle wrestling season, and the following issues remain. With regards to equipment, our athletic department failed to appropriately prepare for the upcoming freestyle season, despite knowing that there were 4 girls returning to the team and efforts were underway to recruit more. Freestyle wrestling involves throws of wrestlers to the mat, and unfortunately the district has not provided the needed crash mats for our female athletes, which means that they either cannot train in this modality or they are at risk for serious injury. Likewise, when the primary competition mat was ordered, as we changed from the Chiefs to the Red Hawks, only a boys folk style mat was ordered. A girls freestyle mat, which is different in appearance and boundary markers, was not. Furthermore, sadly, the uniforms ordered by the athletic
Just so you know, 2:30, keep going, I'm just going to
for
run
the
to time.
women are subpar. They are nearly transparent. I've been told that they are the same as the boys and that this should be fine. However, girls' anatomy is not the same as the boys, nor are their undergarments. And the members of the team are as young as those girls in the 7th grade. Additionally, unlike other girls throughout Section 5 and 6...
Ms. Todd, I was going to pause you for 1 second. We're at the 3 minutes. I will ask the board, do you want to extend the time?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Additionally, unlike other girls throughout Section 5 and 6, our female athletes did not each receive a set of high-quality new gear. Their gear set is piecemeal, of inferior quality, of insufficient number, with certain pieces offered only after their male counterparts had picked through and made their choices, leaving the girls with bags with broken zippers and holes where their things are falling out of them. Finally, in terms of facilities, the girls' locker room showers are not accessible. The athletic department instead chooses to use this space for excess storage. I've provided some photos of the current state of the ladies' locker room. This locker room is a trip hazard for female athletes coming in from the wrestling room. There are large pads on the path between the wrestling room and the lockers, and it makes it impossible for the athletes to shower following practice. This is a serious health concern that increases the likelihood of communicable diseases, including ringworm, mat herpes, and pink eye. This specific issue was identified and brought to the attention of the athletic department last year during wrestling season, but convenient storage has been prioritized over our female athletes' health. The boys' locker room, in the meantime, is reported to be in pristine condition and 3 times the size of our girls' accommodations. These deficiencies were identified and brought to the athletic department politely, professionally, and through appropriate channels. I want to be clear that there was no lack of communication between our coaches, our parents, and the athletic department. If we are ever to be led to believe otherwise, I tell you sincerely that is not the case. I allowed the first 3 weeks for the district to work through these issues, hoping that they would be handled. But there are now 11 female wrestlers on our team, including a female student team manager and 12 sets of parents who are now witness to this situation, many brand new to the team. The girls are there in their gear, if you can call it that. Many are wearing Iroquois field hockey gear or other gear at our first tournament this year. I want the board to understand that girls high school wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the nation. The Iroquois girls program has tripled in size from last year and will likely outpace the boys team's numbers by next year if growth continues. It is not uncommon to have girls team numbers in Section 6 and beyond of 20 to 40 girls. Instead of applauding these young women for their courage in this sport, in this groundbreaking season, unfortunately, we as a district have failed these young women to date. That is my opinion. To summarize, we have female athletes participating in a New York State sanctioned sport. These athletes are not being provided the same accommodations as their male counterparts. They have insufficient equipment, insufficient athletic gear, and insufficient facilities. I request the administration take the following action. Clear the girls' shower and locker rooms of all debris and storage, as well as appropriately sanitize it. There are currently metal file cabinets, basketballs, all sorts of things in their shower area. Immediately order replacement uniforms of the coaches and parents choosing that are appropriate for young women, grades 7 through 12, that will be available as soon as possible for upcoming tournaments in January and February of this season. We have 2 seniors on this team this year. Rush order the necessary crash mats for freestyle wrestling training. Lastly, I just urge each one of you to advocate for these young women. I hope you can tell that I am quite passionate about it, not just for my daughter, but for each one of these girls that is brave enough to do this. Please pretend for just one moment that you are their father, their mother, their brother, their sister, their aunt, their uncle, and fight for them in that personal way. I understand a newly sanctioned sport, there's going to be bumps in road, there's going to be misunderstandings, there's going to be things that are not flawless, but no female athlete should ever be made to feel marginalized or second rate. Our Iroquois daughters deserve much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have a need for an executive session? Okay, I'm making the motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? 5 in favor? We passes.
Get to go home?
Kind of.
You gotta hit the gavel.